Hello and good morning, everyone. I titled this talk, What I Did on My Sabbatical. And first and foremost, I was and am and will remain grateful. Grateful and practicing gratitude was what I did a lot of on my sabbatical. You gave me a great gift, financial support while I took a break from holding down 2 ministerial jobs that I love. I love this work because it's about loving the people. I love you people. And I had to get away for a little while. Having a break was essential. As author and educator Parker Palmer writes, self-care and self-love is never a selfish act. Spent a little time pondering this because it felt a little selfish. It certainly felt self-indulgent. But he says, self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. Anytime we can listen to our true self and give it the care it requires, we do so not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch, close quote. So thank you for allowing me the time and space for necessary self-care. I believe that I used it well. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I did and talk about what it meant for me and how I hope it's enriching for the congregations that I serve. And then I want to reflect back a little bit what I know that you did and think about how we go forward working together with renewed energy in a new year that promises to have some particular challenges. As Stanley Tucci's character says in The Devil Wears Prada, gird your loins. My sabbatical was a lovely mix of planned projects and following pleasure. I planned just enough and did those things, but I didn't plan too much. And I had plenty of time to relax and follow pleasure. The things that I planned and that I did, and I'll talk a little bit more about, were, many of you know that, hello, I'm I am pursuing my doctorate, my Doctor of Ministry degree at United Theological Seminary. And to that end, I was part of a leadership seminar. And I'll speak a little bit about what I did in that doctoral program. And I'm also pursuing an art and spirituality program with the Jewish Studio Project. And I completed my practicum in that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I renewed a yoga practice that I have loved. I have an online teacher that's just wonderful, and so I've been doing that. I spent time with family and friends. I spent a good chunk of the time in Texas with mom and dad. Paris, Texas is in the house. I had 13 Sundays off. I counted every one of them. I was afraid that it would ruin me for Sunday mornings, but it did not. But 5 of those 13, we watched CBS Sunday Morning. So I missed you, mom and dad, this morning when the trumpets flew. I'll just say that. I watched old movies. I read books for pleasure. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I highly recommend. There's a book called Cane River that's a kind of a slave narrative that was really excellent. And I read a couple of unknown, no-name mystery books that I probably picked up out of little free libraries. Couldn't tell you the name of them. They weren't even very good, but I really enjoyed it. I made art. I cooked and baked. It was really swell. My husband and I had fun. We watched TV shows that were completely unilluminating in any way. It was just good. I made good use of this. Our theme this month is the gift of liberating love. And so I want to share how this leadership seminar that I was a part of helped clarify this sense of liberating love, a few of the key learnings for me, and how I think love leads us to shared action. There were some 20 students from around the world in our online doctoral seminar. That we were from the Twin Cities, from the East Coast and the West Coast, all points in between. There were students. There was a student from Cameroon in Africa. There was a student from Burma. That we were really from all over the world. And some of them, after we met initially online in the first class meeting, some were asynchronous and some of us met weekly together. Do you know asynchronous? That means that some of them did not meet all together synced up. They just came and did their learning on their own and then posted in an online forum. And some of us met together in a class setting. So it was interesting the way that online learning is both synchronous and asynchronous, but we were able to learn from each other across the world. We were all reading the same material and all responding to the same questions. Really fascinating. So here are some of the things that really stood out to me. Strong and well-boundaried religious leadership is predicated on spiritual maturity, or at least the desire and the determination to move toward spiritual maturity. By this, I mean that we are doing something here together. I hope that as we begin 2024, we find ourselves maybe in a place that we can recognize some spiritual or emotional, if you don't like the word spiritual, emotional growth from where we were at the start of 2023 or 22 or 21, right? That we're not just treading water here, that actually being a part of a congregational community is inviting us to depth and growth, right? Spiritual maturity. Kendall Gibbons, the Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons says this about her work, spiritual maturity. Quote, "This is the kind of person I want to become, finally. Self-aware, reverent, real, strong, compassionate, graceful, humble, loyal, faithful, interdependent, at peace with my mortality, and fluent in the language of the Spirit." Close quote. I'm going to read it again because that's a lot. It may take more than a year to get there. Or several. This is the kind of person I want to become, finally. Self-aware, reverent, real, strong, compassionate, graceful, humble, loyal, faithful, interdependent, at peace with my mortality, and fluent in the language of the Spirit. Now, some of those may resonate with you more than others, and you may have others that you would add to that list. But it's an interesting question to contemplate, what does spiritual or emotional or mental maturity mean for you? Mindfulness, maturity mean for you? Where are you going, and where do you hope this congregation is going, and where can we lead together? Okay. This is individual and collective work, and responsible and loving leaders model and encourage growth toward spiritual maturity. That was one of my big takeaways. That let me predicate this, that we are all leaders, that leadership is an action, not a title. We show up here in this fellowship and we all take some responsibility. and that we are moving in the direction together. Another one that was a big aha moment in this teaching was the distinction between adaptive challenges and technical challenges. Has anybody here heard this about adaptive challenges and technical challenges? This may be kind of a buzzword in the business world. I don't know, some people may have heard it from the business world, but this was big aha for me. Okay, so an adaptive challenge is one that takes some real adaptations to meet. And a technical challenge is one that needs a fairly technical fix. Here's the example that I learned that has really made it come true. Let's say you break your arm. Don't break your arm. Okay, nobody break their arm. But if you break your arm, there is a pretty technical fix for that. The doctors know what to do. They know how to set it, no matter where you might break it on the arm. There is a well considered plan that is proven to work no matter what age you are to set that bone. Medical science has got a good plan to set that bone. They don't have to figure that out. They may have a complication or two, but they know how to set a bone, right? You've got a medical plan. You're going to get your bone set. If you have, that's a technical fix. Needs some skill for sure. You want a good doc, you want a good medical team. If you have heart disease, there are a number of things that have to happen to help mitigate and correct that heart disease. And not every solution works for every person. There are lifestyle changes, there are changes in nutrition, changes in exercise. It has to do with what mobility you have, what are you able to do. There are all kinds of adaptations that you have to make to help mitigate that heart disease. Do you see the difference? Right? One is, here's what you do, and in 4 to 6 weeks, you can expect this kind of results. The other one is a much more complicated challenge. And here are some suggestions, and you either follow or don't follow those, and we'll see what happens. Congregations, societies, cities, counties, societies, families, schools, name a group, face both technical and adaptive challenges. So I feel like this is new information to me. So now when we're working with the steering committee or the new social action team or the Sunday services team or membership or any of them, it may help us when an issue comes up to say, it helps me to say, is that a technical challenge or is that an adaptive challenge? What kind of skills do we need to bring to it? You know, when you're working in a meeting and the agenda breaks down and everybody's, oh, there's so much, we're just all talking, and we can't get to a solution. That is likely an adaptive challenge. If it's a technical fix, you may get to 3 or 4 possible answers and you can decide which one makes the most sense. So it may be helpful for us to begin thinking of the issues that we face, and every organization faces them, whether it's an adaptive or a technical. I don't know, that was just a big aha moment out of that leadership class. The other one, I'm not going to give you the whole course right now, but you can look forward to more. The other one is about dealing with conflict, and I am I was so delighted in the class. Lots of the students were talking about in their own settings, lots of conflict. in their congregations, there was a lot of conflict. I was like, I don't have that much conflict. How people get involved. But conflict also happens, and conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. One of the ways that we learn to talk about it is conflict is actually can be thought of as merely the presence of more than one idea about how things should be done. It is not necessarily a fight waiting to happen. I think often we think about conflict as, whoa, I don't want to look at that, that's bad, conflict is bad, when it really is merely the presence of more than one idea about how things could be done. And so that was an opening for me. But I love this quote from the book Transforming Conflict from Unitarian Universalist minister Teresa Cooley. She issues a powerful invitation for our congregations to become adept at dealing with conflict. Quote, where better to learn skills at all levels than in religious community? If we can create the kind of community that helps us grow in self-awareness, that holds us in love in the midst of our pain and distress, and that helps us walk together toward a new way, this indeed becomes a noble mission. This is not just about figuring out how we can all get along. This is about learning how a congregation can build skills within itself in order to meet its mission to serve the world in a new way. So I think this idea that conflict actually can be, we can welcome it as a transforming issue and not something to get over with as quickly as possible or push under the rug or whatever. This can be important. So those were some of the learnings that I had, and I'm hopeful to bring into work with this low conflict congregation, but it happens, and so not to be afraid of it, and that we each have in our own lives to some degree. And so how can we use that as a part of reaching towards spiritual maturity? So I've also been thinking about what did you do on my sabbatical? Well, for one thing, you changed the holiday to a Circle K. That was not the most important. You had a knockout Main Street Voices 2 events. Next Main Street Voices is coming up. What date? April 6th. Is that the date? April 2nd. Yeah. April 6th. All right. We'll tell you about that in a second. Okay, great. You went through the budget process, right? The budget process is rocking on. Did everybody get their pledges in? Can you still take pledges, Sarah? Can people still take money? Sarah, you'll still take money? Well, yeah. Take money. Excellent. Pledges and money. Great. That's great. Fantastic. The steering team has got a new chair. Betsy Peterson is the new chair of our. Is that right, Betsy? Am I saying this correctly? Is the new chair of our steering committee? Maybe other new officers on the steering committee will have our first meeting in a couple of weeks. So I'm really glad for that leadership that's coming on. Who else is new officers on the steering committee? Yay, Cindy and Lynn. Thank you. Thank you for stepping up. Different people, I'm telling you, leadership. I'm really grateful for your leadership. And our social action committee got going. Dan Adair, we see you, Dan. We know you're here online. Anne, who else is Jean, Marty and Gary, we know you're here. Marissa, thank you so much. And Reverend Dr. Andrea Johnson worked with you to help coordinate and give some structure to this new energy to a social action team. And you'll be hearing more about what the social action team is up to, especially a rapid response network. Anne has been sending out some emails inviting people to be a part of a rapid response network. And Anne, when we get to announcements, will you say a word about that? Okay. So a way for us to plug in. For this congregation, this size of congregation, in 1 year, to launch 2 major initiatives, Main Street Voices and Social Action Network, is huge, unbelievable. I'm blown away by your commitment and your energy and your leadership. I just love it. I can't stand it. I love it. I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke up your skirt. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So I want to. It's a big thing in this world where we don't know what to do. Where we say we don't know what to do. You are actually doing it. Fascism is real and growing and pervasive and harmful. And will our rapid response network change the outcome of an election? Will our Main Street Voices change the tenor of the town? We don't know yet. It could. It could. We don't know. But what it will change is us. What it does do is give us hope. The liberating part of the liberating love is it liberates us from fear, from anxiety, from at least some of the fear and anxiety that can get us so tightly bound that the world is going to hell in a minute. Because it sure feels that way to me. It absolutely does. And as we go into 2024, I want to hide underneath here. I really do. The thing that keeps me going is meeting in community. I don't think I could do this if I were an isolationist, alone with just the bad news on my phone. Couldn't do it. Liberating love connects us. Love liberates our hearts and connects us to other people. Bell Hooks says this: the moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move toward freedom to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. That action is the testimony of love, as is the practice of freedom. That action is the testimony of love as the practice of freedom. I think love as liberation, it seems to me that the equation works this way. I have to have self-love and self-care, which is that spiritual maturity. And then I have to be in community, and I have to love the community, which means I offer leadership in the community, which means I can do leadership more in the world. Do you see that equation? We have to have some self-love, do our own internal work, and love the people that we're with who are also doing their work, imperfect as we are, progress, not perfection. so that we can love out into the world and lead out into the world, imperfect as it is. Progress, not perfection. That, to me, that changes us. And if it changes the world even that much, it's that much better than it was. And these acts of goodness and kindness are so, so important. I can't change what's happening in Gaza and Israel. I can't bring the hostages home. I can't change what's happening with this unimaginable death toll. I can protect my heart by doing my own work and breathing and being with other people. I can organize and vote and do those things. I myself cannot change the outcome of an election that I fear. But I can be present with you and tell the truth about how it feels. And practice leadership here together. In this fellowship, leadership is an action, not a title. It is an activity that we all do. I'm going to say just a couple more things and then I'll close it for discussion. The UUA has coming up, and I'm going to put this in the upcoming newsletter. The UUA has coming up 30 Days of Love. It goes from Martin Luther King Day to Valentine's Day. And you text to sign up, and it's divided into 4 weeks. And they send you like little bits of different information. And they send you some actions that you can take, but also kind of meditations that you can do related to these. Some things related to kids. Some are related to like a body prayer, things like that. The first week is safety and decriminalization. Second week is climate justice. Third week is body autonomy, LGBTQIA+, reproductive justice, gender and disability justice. Fourth week is democracy and electoral justice. And so there's a text number, so I'll put that in the newsletter that will drop this coming Wednesday. So take a look, be sure and take a look at that. If you want to get connected to what the larger movement of the Unitarian Universalist Association is doing on these 30 Days of Love. This is an answer to the 40 days of prayer that some fundamentalist congregations do. And we say that love is at the center of all we do, including our leadership. Austin Channing Brown, African-American activist, writer, leader, says to practice love is to disrupt the status quo, which is masquerading as peace. To practice love is to disrupt the status quo, which is masquerading as peace. May it be so. And amen.